breaking the cycle, how I escaped my family's entitlement and found my worth. I've been lurking here for a while and never thought I'd have a story worth sharing. But after years of dealing with my family's entitlement, I think it's finally time to put it all out there. This is the story of how my parents made me work 2 jobs as a teenager while my brother, their golden child, got to live at home rent-free, do nothing, and still be treated like royalty. It's also about how, years later, when they needed my help, they tried to manipulate me one last time. So, let's rewind to when I was 16. My parents were the kind of people who believed in tough love, but only for me. My younger brother, who we'll call Brandon, was special, not in any actual way. He was just the youngest, and for some reason, that meant he was treated like a prince while I was treated like an unpaid servant. When I turned 16, my parents sat me down and gave me a whole speech about learning responsibility. Basically, that meant they weren't going to pay for anything anymore. Not my clothes, not my phone, not even food if I wanted snacks outside of the 3 sad meals they made. If I wanted anything at all, I had to get a job. So I did. Actually, I got 2 jobs because one minimum wage job wasn't enough to cover everything. I went to school during the day, worked evenings at a fast food place, and then did weekend shifts at a retail store. It sucked, but I did what I had to do. Meanwhile, Brandon, he got to sit on his butt all day, play video games, and complain when dinner wasn't exactly what he wanted. He never had to lift a finger. I brought up once, just once. I asked my parents why Brandon didn't have to get a job, why he wasn't expected to help around the house, why he got free spending money when I had to break my back working. Their response? He deserves to be taken care of. Like I didn't? Like I wasn't also their kid? That was the moment I realized exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy, below Brandon, below their expectations, and definitely below their interest in fairness. Fast forward a few years. The moment I turned 18, I moved out. I had been saving every penny I could, and I managed to get a tiny, run-down apartment with a roommate. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My parents barely reacted when I left. They didn't help, didn't offer support, and didn't even seem to care. And Brandon? He just shrugged and kept living his consequence-free life. I went no contact for a while, just trying to build my own life without their nonsense. I worked my butt off, climbed my way up in my job, and eventually got to a place where I was financially stable. I wasn't rolling in money, but I was doing well. Meanwhile, Brandon was still at home, still jobless, still mooching off my parents, and apparently still deserving to be taken care of. Then, out of nowhere, my parents reached out. I hadn't heard from them in years, but suddenly they were calling, texting, and leaving voicemails. It started with, "Hey, how have you been?" but quickly turned into, "We need to talk." When I finally answered, I was hit with the most dramatic, over-the-top sob story I had ever heard. They told me that my dad had lost his job, my mom was struggling with serious health issues, and they were barely making ends meet. They needed help, financial help, urgently. They made it sound like they were on the verge of losing the house, like they were barely scraping by, and like my mother was on her deathbed. At first, I almost felt bad, almost. But then I started asking questions. What exactly was wrong with my mom? What specifically happened with my dad's job? What had they tried before reaching out to me? And most importantly, was Brandon working now? Silence, awkward fumbling, a few weak excuses, and then the truth started slipping through the cracks. My dad had lost his job, but he was on unemployment and just didn't feel like getting another one. My mom had some health problems, but nothing life-threatening, just normal aging stuff that they exaggerated to make it sound dire. And Brandon, of course, he still wasn't working. He was now in his mid-20s and still mooching. They didn't need my help because they were desperate. They needed it because they wanted to keep living the same way they always had, without responsibility, without consequences, and without Brandon having to lift a damn finger. That was the moment everything clicked. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about all the years I struggled. They didn't even care about trying to make things fair. They just saw that I was doing well and thought, "Oh, perfect. Our other kid can bankroll us now." And that was when I made my decision. So, there I was, holding my phone, listening to my parents' sob story, and the more they talked, the more disgusted I became. They didn't even try to hide their manipulation. It was clear as day. They were trying to guilt trip me into giving them money so they could keep living the same entitled, lazy life they'd always lived. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about the sacrifices I made. It was just about getting what they could from me. When I stayed silent for a moment, they started to get desperate. We don't know what we're going to do, honey," my mom's voice cracked. "We might lose the house. You know how much we've sacrificed for you. You owe us." Owe them. The audacity. I was the one who sacrificed everything for them. I worked 2 jobs in high school while Brandon sat there and lived rent-free, playing games all day. I sacrificed my childhood to support them, and this was how they saw it. I couldn't help myself. I scoffed. "Oh, I owe you?" There was a long pause. "Well, yes," my mom continued, her voice a little more firm now. "You've been on your own for so long, and we've always supported you in our own way. But, with everything that's happened lately, we really need some help." I stayed calm, even though my blood was boiling. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. "I'm not sending you money," I said flatly. "You've had plenty of time to prepare. You didn't care when I was working my butt off just to get by. You didn't care when I was struggling, and you still made me pay for everything. But now that you need something, you think I owe you?" Silence. I could hear them in the background talking quietly to each other, probably trying to figure out what to say next. I wasn't giving in, but then, just when I thought they might back off, Brandon's voice came through the line. "Hey, what's up, sis?" The nerve. I try to keep my tone neutral. "Not much. Just telling mom and dad that I'm not sending money." Brandon chuckled. "Come on. It's not like they're asking for much. Just a little help, right?" I could feel my frustration building, but I stayed cool. "Yeah, and last time I checked, you're an adult too, Brandon. Maybe you should step up and help them out." Brandon's laugh faded. "Oh, come on. I'm the baby of the family. They've always taken care of me. Why are you so upset?" "Because you're 26 years old and still living at home, doing absolutely nothing. It's time to grow up," I snapped. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Brandon muttered, "Whatever. You're just being selfish." It wasn't even about me being selfish. It was about me finally standing up for myself. But of course, Brandon didn't get that. "Yeah, I guess I'm just selfish for not wanting to keep paying for their laziness," I said, feeling the sarcasm drip from my words. That's when my mom jumped back into the conversation. "It's not like that. Sweetie, we just need a little help, okay? You don't have to give us everything. Just a little something, please. We're your family." That family card again. "No, Mom, you're right. I don't have to give you anything," I said, my voice getting a little colder now. "But you know what? I'm going to make this easy for you. Since you've always been so generous with Brandon, I think you'll have no problem continuing to support him. Let him take care of you for once." There was a moment of stunned silence. I could practically hear the gears turning in their heads as they realized I wasn't budging. Finally, my mom's voice cracked again. "Sweetie, you're being unreasonable. You can't just abandon us like this. We've always been there for you." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. "You were never there for me. You never supported me. I've been taking care of myself for years, and I'm done being the one to pick up the pieces every time you mess up. So no, I'm not sending money, and I'm not going to be your backup plan anymore. You'll have to figure out just like I did." There was a long pause. I could hear Brandon in the background arguing with him. My mom was trying to reason with me, but I wasn't hearing it. "Please don't do this," my mom pleaded. "We're your parents. We took care of you when you were younger. Can you help us now?" I sighed. I was done with the manipulation, done with the guilt trips. "No, you had your chance," I said, my voice firm. "You made your choices. Now you get to live with them." There was silence on the other end for what felt like forever. Then Brandon started whining. "What is wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? You're family, and you're just going to leave us high and dry." I didn't even reply. I just hung up. That was the last straw. The next day, I checked my bank account. There was a small, barely noticeable charge from my parents' bank account, a charge I never authorized. It wasn't a huge amount, just a couple $100, but it was my money. The audacity. I called them again. No answer. So I emailed them, asking them to explain the charge. The email I got back was classic. A lame excuse about a misunderstanding and how they didn't realize they were using the wrong account. Of course, it was all a lie. They had taken the money thinking I wouldn't notice. At that point, I knew I had to take things further. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Here's how it went down. A couple of years ago, during one of those rare family bonding moments, my mom had asked if I could link my card to their account in case of emergencies. You know, the kind of emergency where they could borrow money and then forget to pay it back. I had been naive, agreeing to it because I trusted them. It was supposed to be for emergencies only, but let's be real, nothing ever stays an emergency in their world. I should have known better. Over the years, I had kept my card linked to their account, mainly for situations like when I needed to pay for something that wasn't accessible through my own funds, like a last-minute flight or an urgent repair. But I made it clear from the start that it wasn't to be used for their personal spending. Except, as I looked at that charge, it became clear that's exactly what they'd done. They had found some loophole in their account system where they could pull money from my linked account using their own login credentials to withdraw from my balance. They had been doing this for months. I didn't catch it earlier because I wasn't paying enough attention, but now that I saw it, I realized how deep they'd gone into my finances. It was a small charge at first, probably to see if I'd notice, and of course I had. But then I thought about how many other times they dipped into my account without my knowledge. They had crossed a line, one that I wasn't going to let them get away with. I decided to call them, but not to give them a chance to lie their way out of it. I was done with the soft approach. It was time to turn the tables. Ring, ring. My mom picked up the phone, and before she could even say hello, I shot right to the point. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking but controlled. "I noticed a charge on my account. I need you to explain it." There was a pause. I could hear the rustling of papers on the other end as she scrambled to think of an excuse. "Honey, I don't know what you mean. What charge?" I clicked the email open, pulling up the exact details. "The one where you took $250 from my account. I know what you did." "Oh." My mom's voice instantly got defensive. That was just a mistake. We didn't mean to, it was for the house repairs, remember? We needed help paying for it, and we thought. "No, you didn't. You didn't ask me for permission. You just took it." I cut her off, refusing to let her weasel her way out of it. "You've been using my account without my knowledge. How long has this been going on?" My mom started stuttering, and I could hear her trying to shift the blame. "Well, it's not like you need all that money anyway. You're doing fine, and Brandon has been struggling. He's the one who needed the money. We didn't know who else to turn to." "Wait, Brandon, you're trying to tell me you took money from my account because he was struggling? The same Brandon who sits on his butt all day, playing video games and avoiding work? The one who doesn't lift a finger to help with anything?" My hands clenched into fists. "You took my money to help Brandon?" I couldn't believe it. "Brandon? The guy who still lives in your house rent-free, while I've been working 2 jobs for years just to get by? That's what you're taking money from me for?" My mom's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Please don't make a scene. No, don't tell me not to make a scene," I said, cutting her off. "You're taking my money without my permission. You're lying to me, and you expect me to just roll over and accept it? What kind of parent does that to their child?" There was a heavy silence on the other end, and then Brandon's voice. "Dude, why are you being so dramatic? Just let it go." I was done. I hung up the phone without another word, my heart pounding in my chest. They didn't care. They didn't even understand what they'd done. At that point, I knew it was over. I was no longer going to play their game. I couldn't change them, but I could make them feel the weight of their actions. The next day, I reached out to my bank. I told them what happened, and I made sure they'd freeze the linked account. No more access, no more automatic withdrawals. I wasn't going to let my parents or Brandon steal from me anymore. I made it clear to them that I was serious. I filed a complaint with the bank explaining how they had violated my trust, and then I did something I'd never done before. I went no contact. No more phone calls, no more texts, no more running to their rescue. If they wanted to keep playing this game, I wasn't going to be their patsy anymore. It had been days since I'd gone no contact with my parents, and I'd never felt more at peace. No more guilt trips, no more manipulation, no more pretending to be okay with how they treated me. They had crossed a line, and for the first time, I wasn't running back to fix it. I thought I'd be able to relax, but of course, that wasn't going to happen. My phone rang that morning. Blocked number. I groaned. I knew it was one of them. I didn't pick up. The message left was from Mom. I don't understand what's happening with you. You've always been so strong for us. Why are you shutting us out now? Brandon needs you, and you're just abandoning your family. I know things have been tough, but you've always been the one to fix things. Please, I need you to fix this. Don't let this be the end of us. I listened to the message and felt nothing. No guilt, no urge to call her back. I was done. I blocked her number immediately, but I knew that wasn't going to stop them. It was only a matter of time before they escalated things. Sure enough, 2 hours later, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, this time from Dad. I braced myself. This has gone too far. I don't know who you're listening to, but you're making a huge mistake. Brandon's having a hard time, okay? You think he doesn't deserve help? I'm not going to beg you, but we need you. This isn't how a family works. You're abandoning us, and I can't let you do that. It was the same old routine, the guilt, the drama, the manipulation. They had always been good at making me feel like I owed them something, and here they were trying to twist everything into my fault. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew what this was. They were trying to make me feel bad about my decision, make me question myself. They wanted me to break and go back to being their emotional and financial support. I wasn't going to be their punching bag anymore. It was just after dinner when I got another message, this time from Brandon. I could almost feel the eye roll forming as I opened it. Hey, you've really messed this up. Mom and Dad are upset, and now you're just going to ignore us? You've always been the one to fix things, and now you're just walking away? I don't know why you're doing this, but you're hurting the family. Don't you think you should step up? You've always helped before. What's changed? I stared at the message for a long time. He was really trying to guilt me into helping, just like Dad had. I felt a flash of anger, but quickly suppressed it. They had no right to ask for anything from me after everything they put me through. I decided to text back, not because I owed him an explanation, but because I was tired of them thinking they could manipulate me. Brandon, this isn't about you anymore. It's about how I've been treated for years. You've always taken, never given. I've supported everyone else while I was struggling. I'm not your safety net anymore. I sent the message, and I knew it was probably going to make him angry, but honestly, I didn't care. I needed to stand my ground. I sat back, feeling a sense of peace for a moment. It was quiet again, but that peace was short-lived. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with an email. It was from Dad again. The subject line read, "We need to talk." I opened it, not expecting much, but still feeling a twinge of dread in my chest. I don't know what you're doing, but this can't go on. We've done everything for you. We gave you everything you needed, and now you're treating us like this. We're your parents. We deserve better than this. The words stung, but not for the reasons they thought they would. They didn't deserve better than this. They needed to face the consequences of their actions. I started typing a response, but stopped. No more explanations, no more guilt. I wasn't going to fall into the trap again. Instead, I forwarded the email to a friend and added a simple message, just a reminder. Don't let anyone tell you that you owe them ever. I could feel my blood boiling, but I held firm. Just as I was about to shut my phone off for the night, I received a call from Mom. I didn't answer. It kept ringing and ringing. I stared at the screen, feeling a mix of anger and exhaustion. They weren't going to stop, but this time I was ready. I waited for the voicemail. When it finally came through, it was worse than I expected. You've pushed us too far now. You're really going to leave us to deal with everything on our own? Brandon's been crying about this. And now your father is upset, too. We've been nothing but good to you. This is what happens when you turn your back on your family. How could you do this? You're going to regret this one day. I felt the familiar twinge of guilt creeping in, but I shut it down quickly. No more. No more explanations. They were playing the same game again, trying to make me feel responsible for everything, but I wasn't going to be manipulated again. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked her number again, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. A few hours later, I received a message, not from them, but from a friend of mine. They'd seen something online, a GoFundMe link claiming my parents were in financial trouble. According to the description, they'd had some sort of medical emergency and were asking for money again. The message read, "Is this true? I thought you were done with them." I opened the link and felt my stomach drop. The story was a blatant lie. It claimed my parents had been involved in a car accident and that they were in dire need of funds for hospital bills. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They were using the same tactics they had tried on me, but now they were trying to get strangers involved. They were once again playing the victim to get money. It made me sick. They hadn't even learned from the last time they tried to manipulate me. I stare at my phone, the GoFundMe page still open in front of me. The story was so exaggerated, so full of holes that I couldn't believe anyone was buying it. But that's when it clicked. I needed to expose them for what they really were. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and I knew I'd probably lose any chance of reconciliation, but what they had done was too far. They had crossed a line, not just with me, but with everyone they were trying to manipulate. I took a deep breath and began typing, "Hello, everyone. These people are my parents. The story about the car accident is completely fabricated. My parents are not in any medical emergency. They are not in any financial trouble. This is just another attempt to scam people into giving them money under false pretenses. I can't stand by and let them keep doing this to others. They've spent years taking advantage of me, making me feel guilty for their mistakes, while my brother was allowed to live rent-free and treated like the golden child. They've played the victim for so long that I've had enough. I'm cutting contact with them for good. Please don't donate to this page. Instead, take this as a reminder that not everyone who asks for help is being honest. I've been the one who's had to work 2 jobs to support myself while they sat back and took advantage. It's time to stop letting people like them get away with this." I paused before clicking the send button. I thought about the consequences. I thought about how they would react. But I didn't hesitate. It was time for the world to know the truth. I posted it immediately. The notifications flooded in. Comments, messages, shares. People were starting to see through the facade. The GoFundMe page was bombarded with negative comments, calling out my parents for their lies. Donations stopped pouring in, and within hours, the page was taken down for violating platform policies. I couldn't help but feel a small sense of relief. For once, I wasn't the one carrying the weight of their lies. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of messages. Most of them were from friends, some offering support, others just shocked that I had exposed everything so publicly. But then there were the messages from them, my parents. "Why did you do this? We raised you better than this. Do you have any idea what you've done? You're ruining everything." Brandon even got involved, calling me up, furious. "Why are you doing this? Mom and Dad are in trouble, and you're just making it worse. They've always been there for you. You're tearing the family apart." I didn't even respond to their messages. I didn't need to. I'd already made my choice. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had control over my own story. I wasn't going to let them dictate my happiness anymore. I wasn't going to be their emotional punching bag, their scapegoat. I had done the right thing, and now it was time to move on with my life. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly things started to fall into place. I was finally free. I focused on my career, spent time with friends who genuinely cared about me, and started living life the way I wanted to. As for my parents, they never reached out again. They probably never thought I'd have the guts to stand up to them, let alone expose them for what they really were. But I did, and honestly, I didn't care if I ever heard from them again. I had my peace, and that was all that mattered. What do you all think? Was I wrong for exposing them, or did I finally take control of my own life? Let me know your thoughts.